Think about the last nightmare you had. Really go back there for a second. Maybe you were falling. Maybe something was chasing you in the dark. Do you remember how your body reacted? Your heart was pounding against your ribs. Your palms were sweating. Your breath was short. You felt the terror in every cell of your body. To your brain, in that moment, it was 100% real. The danger was real. The monster was real. Then, you woke up. You looked around your room, saw the sunlight, and realized it was all just firing neurons. It was a hallucination. But here is the question that should haunt you. How do you know you aren't doing that right now? How do you know that this room, this screen, your life, isn't just a very long, very stable, very convincing, lucid dream? We trust our eyes. We trust our hands. We say, it's real because I can touch it. But we forget what touch actually is. Your brain, the thing decoding your reality, sits in a pitch-black vault of bone. It has never seen the sun. It has never touched a surface. It relies entirely on electrical cables sending it signals. A zap of electricity tells you, this is hot. A frequency tells you, this is red. If I could plug a computer into your brain and send those same electrical signals, you would feel a table that isn't there. You would taste an apple that doesn't exist. So, are you living in the universe? Or are you living in a simulation running inside your own head? Science tries to tell us that consciousness is created inside the brain. They look for the soul inside the neurons. But that is like taking apart a radio to find the little man singing inside. The music isn't in the radio. The radio is just the receiver. The signal comes from somewhere else. You are not your brain. You are the signal passing through it. And right now, the receiver you are wearing is incredibly limited. Consider this. Science tells us that the visible light spectrum, the colors you can see with your eyes, makes up less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Less than 1%. That means for every one thing you can see, there are 99 things right in front of your face that you are totally blind to. There could be entire civilizations, complex structures, or entities standing right next to you. But because your biological headset isn't tuned to that frequency, to you, the room looks empty. We aren't seeing reality. We are seeing a user interface. We are seeing a simplified, dumbed-down version of the world designed to keep us alive. So if we are only seeing 1% of the picture, why are we so convinced that this world is solid? This is where the illusion begins to crack. Because when we stop looking at the surface and we start looking at the code underneath, the physical world disappears. We used to think atoms were building blocks, like bricks. But when we zoomed in, we didn't find bricks. We found a ghost town.
We have this idea that matter is solid stuff. We think if we zoom in close enough, we will hit a hard surface. But physics tells us something very different, and honestly, it is terrifying. If you took an atom and blew it up to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus, the solid center, would be a single marble sitting on the 50-yard line. The electrons? They would be tiny gnats buzzing around the very top seats of the stands. Everything in between? Everything between that marble and those gnats? It is empty space. It is a void. That means you are 99.999% empty space.
You aren't a solid object. You are a cloud of energy held together by a force field. When you touch a wall, you aren't actually touching it. Your electrons are just pushing against the wall's electrons. You are hovering on a microscopic cushion of force. Nothing ever truly touches anything. So if the building blocks of reality are empty, what are we actually looking at? It starts to look a lot less like a physical world and a lot more like a digital one. Think about a video game or a computer screen. If you look at a high-resolution image, it looks smooth. It looks real. But if you zoom in, and zoom in, and zoom in, eventually, the image breaks apart. You start to see the squares. You see the pixels. You realize the smooth curve was just a jagged staircase of data. Our universe does the exact same thing. Scientists call it the Planck length. It is the pixel size of the universe. You can't get smaller than that because the math breaks down. It is literally the resolution limit of our reality. It suggests that the universe isn't continuous. It is quantized. It is built out of data. And just like a video game, this system has limits. It has rules on how it renders the world. And sometimes, we catch it glitching. This is where things go from weird science to impossible magic. There is a famous glitch in the system. Scientists call it the double slit experiment, but I like to call it the rendering issue. Here is the simple version. When we fire particles, the stuff reality is made of, through a barrier, they behave normally. But the moment we stop watching them, they change. When we look at them, they act like solid matter. When we look away, they act like waves of energy. It is like the universe is shy. It refuses to define itself until a conscious observer forces it to. Now, apply that logic to a video game. To save processing power, a game engine doesn't render the entire map at once. It only renders the room the player is standing in. The world behind your character doesn't exist until you turn the camera around. Quantum physics is suggesting our reality does the exact same thing. It implies that the chair behind you right now might not fully exist. It might just be a wave of probability, waiting for you to turn your head and collapse it back into a solid object. The universe isn't a place. It's a projection. And it begs the question, if reality requires an observer to exist, then who is the player? And who built the console? It is the height of arrogance to think we are the first ones to figure this out. We sit here with our particle accelerators and our supercomputers, congratulating ourselves for discovering that reality is a hologram. We act like we just invented the idea. But the truth is, we didn't discover anything new. We just found the old instruction manual that we threw away thousands of years ago. If you go back to the oldest texts humanity has, the Vedas from India, the Hermetic tablets of Egypt, the Gnostic scrolls, they were all saying the exact same thing. They just used different words. We say simulation. They said Maya, the great illusion. We say quantum field. They said Akasha. We say holograph. They said dream of Brahma. It's the same story. Take the Hermeticists of ancient Egypt. 3,000 years before a scientist ever looked through a microscope, they wrote down the first principle of the universe. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Think about that. They didn't say the universe is made of rock or fire or atoms. They said it is made of mind. They knew that the foundation of reality wasn't physical stuff, it was consciousness. They understood that the hardware creates the software, but the mind creates the hardware. And science is finally catching up to the mystics. Look at the concept of the fractal. In mathematics, a fractal is a shape where, no matter how much you zoom in, the pattern repeats itself endlessly. The small part looks exactly like the big part. The ancients had a phrase for this too: as above, so below. They looked at the structure of a grand galaxy, and then they looked at the structure of the human brain, and they realized they were the same pattern. They realized that the universe isn't a collection of separate things. It is one single thing, repeating itself at different scales. You are not just in the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself from a specific point of view. This changes everything. Because if the universe is a machine, then we are just cogs. We are victims of physics. But if the universe is a mind, if the universe is a dream, then we are the dreamers. And this is where the glitch stops being a scientific curiosity and starts being a superpower. Because in a dream, if you know you are dreaming, you can change the narrative. You can bend the rules. We call this magic. We call it miracles. We call it manifestation. But maybe it's just admin access. Maybe the saints and the shamans weren't defying the laws of physics. Maybe they just understood the code better than we do. They knew that since the observer creates the reality, changing the observer changes the world. But we have forgotten how to observe. We have forgotten how to focus. We are running on autopilot, letting the program dictate our lives instead of taking the controller. So, how do we get the controller back?
To understand how to take control, we first have to understand the connection. And this is the part that terrified Albert Einstein. He called it spooky action at a distance. In the quantum world, two particles can become entangled. It means they become linked. You can take one particle and leave it here, and take the other one to the opposite side of the galaxy. If you spin the first one to the right, the second one, instantly, faster than the speed of light, will spin to the left. They know what the other is doing. Space does not separate them. Distance is an illusion to them. They are acting as one single object, stretched across the universe. Now, remember the Big Bang Theory. It says that in the beginning, all matter, all energy, everything that exists, was condensed into a single point, a singularity. That means every atom in your body, every atom in the chair you are sitting on, and every atom in the furthest star was once touching. We were all part of that same singularity. Technically speaking, the entire universe is just one giant entangled web. Separation is the biggest lie our eyes tell us. We look at a forest and see 1,000 separate trees, but under the soil, the roots are all connected. It is one organism. We are the same. We think we are separate individuals fighting for survival, but we are just fingers on the same hand. And this isn't just philosophy. We see this mind over matter connection happen in medical science every single day, but we brush it off. We gave it a boring name to hide how magical it is. We call it the placebo effect. Think about what a placebo actually is. You give a sick person a sugar pill, a fake medicine with zero chemical value. You tell them with absolute authority, this will cure you. They believe it, and because they believe it, their body begins to produce the actual chemicals needed to heal. They lower their own blood pressure. They kill their own pain. They fight off infection. How? There was no medicine. There was only an idea. The software, the mind, sent a command to the hardware, the body, and the body obeyed. The observer collapsed a new reality. If a sugar pill can trick your body into healing a disease just because you believe it works, what else can your belief do? What happens if you truly believe you are unlucky? You program the simulation to give you bad luck. What happens if you truly believe you are unworthy? You collapse the wave function of your life into a state of poverty. We are walking around constantly programming our own reality with our expectations, but most of us are programming a horror movie because we are living in fear. We are the architects of our own cages. So, if we have this power, if we are the constant observers creating our reality, why is life so hard? Why do we suffer? Why can't we just close our eyes, imagine a Ferrari, and open them to find it in the driveway? Because the simulation has a security system. Your brain has a filter called the reticular activating system. Think of it as the bouncer of your mind. Remember, there are millions of bits of data flowing at you every second. If you perceived all of it at once, every sound, every color, every radio wave, every possibilities, your brain would fry. You would go insane. So the bouncer stands at the door and says, "Only let in the stuff that matches what we already know." This is why when you buy a specific car, suddenly you see that car everywhere on the road. Did everyone just buy that car? No. They were always there. But before, your bouncer didn't care. Now, it has been programmed to see them. This is the mechanism of your life. If you wake up in the morning and think, "Life is stressful," you have just given the bouncer a command. It will scan the environment for stress. It will highlight the traffic jam. It will amplify the rude comment from your boss. And it will ignore the beautiful sunrise and the smile from a stranger. You literally will not see the good things. They will be invisible to you. You will collapse the stress reality out of the quantum wave, and then you will say, "See? I was right. Life is stressful." You aren't right. You're just stuck in a feedback loop. You are treating the universe like a mirror, but you are frowning into it and waiting for the reflection to smile first. It doesn't work that way. You have to smile first. But this requires something most people don't have: attention control. In this digital age, our attention is being harvested. It is the most valuable currency on Earth. Why do you think social media apps are free? You are paying with your focus. They want you angry, scared, and distracted. Why? Because a distracted observer is a weak creator. If you cannot hold a thought for more than 15 seconds without checking your phone, you cannot bend reality. You don't have enough signal strength. You are sending a weak, static-filled signal to the universe, and the universe is sending you back static-filled chaos. The ancient monks who sat in caves for years, they weren't just relaxing. They were training. They were building the mental muscle to hold a single frequency, a single thought, until it became dense enough to manifest in the physical world. They knew the secret. Where attention goes, energy flows. And where energy flows, matter forms. This brings us to the biggest trap of all, the trap of positive thinking. You can stand in front of a mirror and repeat affirmations all day long. You can say, "I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am free," 1,000 times. But if, while you are saying those words, your stomach is tight with anxiety, if your heart is heavy with fear, then nothing will change. Why? Because the universe doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Swahili. It doesn't care about your vocabulary. The universe speaks frequency. And the organ that generates the strongest frequency in your body isn't your brain, it's your heart. Scientists have measured the magnetic field of the human heart. It is up to 5,000 times stronger than the magnetic field of the brain. You can measure a person's heart field several feet away from their body. Think of your brain as the steering wheel. It decides the direction. But your heart? Your heart is the engine. It provides the fuel. If your brain is thinking, "I want to be rich," but your heart is feeling the vibration of, "I am lacking, I am scared, I am poor," the signal is confused. You are stepping on the gas and the brake at the same time. The simulation doesn't know what to render, so it just gives you more of the same. To hack the system, you have to achieve coherence. You have to think the thought, and then you have to feel the emotion of that thought already happening. This is what the ancient mystics meant when they said, "Believe you have received it, and you shall have it." They weren't talking about pretending. They were talking about broadcasting a signal. When you feel gratitude, your body enters a specific vibrational state. Biologically, gratitude means the event has already happened. If you receive a gift, you say "thank you" after you get it. So, if you can close your eyes and feel deep, genuine gratitude for a future that hasn't happened yet, you are hacking the code. You are tricking the simulation. You are telling the universe, this event has already occurred, and the universe, which is just a mirror, has no choice but to reflect that reality back to you to match your signal. It has to catch up to you. But this is hard work. It is easy to react to what you see. If you see bad news, you feel bad. You are a victim of your environment. The master, the alchemist, does the opposite. They refuse to let the outside world dictate their inside world. They hold the frequency of their vision even when the world around them is burning. They don't believe it when they see it. They see it because they believed it. Now, I have to give you a warning. Everything we have talked about sounds empowering. It sounds exciting. But the truth is, waking up from the simulation is not a peaceful process. It is destructive. If you actually start to apply this, if you start to take control of your attention, if you start refusing the fear programming that society feeds you, you are going to encounter resistance. You see, the system is designed for stability, not for individual power. It wants you to be a predictable cog in the machine. It wants you to watch the news, get angry, buy things you don't need, and stay in line. When you unplug from that, when you stop reacting, you become a glitch, and the system has antibodies. You will notice something strange happen with the people around you. Your friends, your family, your coworkers. As your frequency changes, you will start to irritate them. Not because you are doing anything wrong, but because your vibration no longer matches theirs. It is basic physics. Constructive interference versus destructive interference. If you are vibrating at a frequency of possibility and growth, and they are vibrating at a frequency of complaining and victimhood,
You literally cannot exist in the same space comfortably. They will try to pull you back down. They will say things like, "You've changed," or "You're being unrealistic," or "Why can't you just be normal?" They aren't doing this because they are bad people. They are doing it because your freedom highlights their chains. Your light casts a shadow on their refusal to wake up. This is the lonely part of the journey. This is the dark night of the soul. Most people reach this point and they turn back. They would rather be asleep and accepted by the herd than be awake and alone. They plug themselves back into the matrix because the silence of their own mind is too terrifying. But you have to understand that this loneliness is not a punishment. It is a transition. Think of a radio again. When you switch from one station to another, there is a moment of static in between. You aren't on the old station anymore, but you haven't tuned into the new one yet. You are in the void. If you are feeling alone right now, if you feel like you don't fit in with the world you used to know, congratulations. It means you are tuning the dial. It means the old program is dissolving and the new one is loading. Do not let the static scare you back into the noise.
So, where does this leave us? Some people hear this information, that reality is an illusion, that atoms are empty, that life is a simulation, and they fall into despair. They say, if none of this is real, then nothing matters. It's all pointless. But they are missing the point. If you are playing a video game, you know it isn't real. You know the dragons are code and the gold coins are pixels. But does that make the game boring? No, it makes it fun. Because you know it's a game, you take risks, you explore, you try things you wouldn't dare try if you thought the consequences were eternal. You play with a sense of freedom. The tragedy of the human condition is that we have forgotten we are players, and we have convinced ourselves we are the characters. We take the game so seriously that we are paralyzed by fear. We are afraid to lose money, afraid to lose status, afraid to die. But you cannot die. You are the energy behind the avatar. When the screen fades to black, the signal doesn't end. It just returns to the source. The ancients had a word for this too. In Sanskrit, they called life Leela. It translates to divine play. They believed the universe is just God hiding from himself, pretending to be you, pretending to be me, pretending to be a rock, pretending to be a star, just to see what it feels like, just for the joy of the experience. So, the ultimate hack, the ultimate secret to the simulation, is simply this. Stop resisting the stream. Stop trying to force the pixels to move with your ego and start directing them with your soul. Look at your life not as a sentence to be served, but as a canvas to be painted. The next time you feel fear, remember, it's just a chemical reaction in the headset. The next time you feel trapped, remember, you are the architect of the walls. The world is a mirror. If you want it to change, you don't break the glass. You change your face. You change your frequency. Wake up. The game is live, and the controller has been in your hand the entire time. The question is, now that you know, what are you going to play next? If you are still listening to my voice, take a moment to acknowledge that. In an age of 15-second attention spans, you just spent over 30 minutes exploring the nature of reality. That says something about you. It says you are looking for something that the rest of the world is too busy to notice. And here is one final thought to take with you. Algorithms are just code. But sometimes, I wonder if the algorithm is just how the universe delivers messages in the modern age. You didn't click on this video by accident. You didn't stay until the very end by accident. You were meant to hear this right now. We are building a community here, a signal in the static. If you want to keep exploring these mysteries with me, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Consider it tuning your dial to this frequency. Now, I want to hear from you. Since we talked about the glitches in reality, what is one thing you have experienced in your life that you simply cannot explain? Maybe it was a dream that came true. Maybe it was a moment where time seemed to stop. Maybe you saw something that shouldn't exist. Scroll down and leave a comment. Let's document the glitches together. I'll see you in the next one. Wake up.